Welcome to the 2021 first episode of Mediums in Action with me, Martin Lake Wilson, and my good friend and expert medium, Ian Doty. Happy New Year, Ian.
Yeah, happy New Year too, Martin. I hope it's going to be it is going to be a good one, and I wish the best for you and your family, of course. And onwards and bloody upwards. It's going to be a busy year, particularly the mediumship, the podcast, and the mediumship course. It's going to be good, and I do look forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Are you shaking something?
No, I'm quite still. I will sit still.
Oh, right. That's really weird. While he was talking, it sounded like a shaking noise.
No, actually, I've got a new PC chair, so it doesn't crackle like the other one.
It's very, very clear. So I'll re-edit that out.
Okay.
But it sounded like somebody was shaking something. It was like a
Yeah, my microphone is on an arm that is sort of bolted onto my desk, so it doesn't move.
Yeah, it's totally stopped now. It was only at that beginning when you was talking about it.
Okay.
How bizarre. Yeah, same to you, Ian. I hope. I know that this year is going to be really interesting. It's going to have a more positive spin. Did you have any feelings of how it's going to pan out in 2021 on a global perspective?
On a global one. On a sad note, there's a lot of partnerships, marriages, etc. ending. But on a positive note, there's a lot of love coming and new partnerships, longer lasting partnerships. And I just feel here people are going to reach for the stars. Is that a S Club 7? No, it's that reach for the stars type thing. So I do feel people are going to be really pushing things this year, particularly a rise in mediumistic stuff and the science looking more into mediumship.
Do you know, it's interesting. I've done quite a few meditations on this to see what I could get from the ether or from my guides as well, to see what 2021 would bring. And it was definitely this thing. I know you use the term reach for the stars, but I definitely feel there's going to be this greater connection with space. I don't know if there's going to be some sort of announcement or there's going to be something, but I certainly feel in the latter half of this year that there'll be an announcement that either maybe it's the first manned crew to Mars has been planned, or maybe there's some further evidence that there is life out there. But I certainly feel it's interesting you use that term. It really is. I do feel not only figuratively that people will be, kind of really pushing themselves to enjoy life because of this pause time and to, push their lives into different and new angles. But also I feel that on a global perspective that there will be this sort of push for the stars. So we'll have to see. Yeah. We were right in the past, Ian. So
even as you were saying, even as you said what you were doing, I just kept on having the image of the planet Mars in my mind. So I do feel it's likely the first manned mission to Mars.
Well, maybe we find something on Mars. That would be interesting. It's a very weird planet, and there's a few anomalies on there. But so the 2021 started off. And it started off with Netflix kind of launching a new series called Surviving Death. It's obviously the big thing for this year, a bit like Tiger King for last year. And they both have the characters, but Surviving Death is a look at not only reincarnation, but also near-death experiences and also mediumship, and it goes to a number of witnesses and people who've had these experiences. And what we want to do this podcast, firstly, about the two episodes that relate to the mediums. Obviously, the reason why we want to do that is because we feel that a lot of the criticism for the program itself has actually come from the medium aspect or from the mediums episode. I just want to, if quickly, and what did you think to the series as a whole? What was your feelings about the series as a whole?
At first, I was staying away from it because I thought it was going to follow the ilk of medium baiting and all of this and putting mediumship down. So I thought why bother when all they do is just take that angle? So I'm glad I persevered and watched it. It was very, very well balanced. Obviously, it's a TV program. It's not a science program, so they didn't go into the mind, the brain, how this might happen. They had. I thought it was well balanced. Particularly the way they handled the sensitivity. They had a lot of empathy in it, and that came through very, very strongly. So I do feel here it was more, this is what it is, what do you think, rather than, oh, it's rubbish, it's this, it's that, it doesn't work, it doesn't this. So I thought it came over well. What about yourself, Martin? How did you feel?
I mean, obviously it's based on a book by Leslie Kean, who actually featured in the documentary series as well, and I think that's why it had that particular segmentation into the different areas that she looked into as well. It did, the middle episodes did seem to, kind of take a tangent, really. And considering I'm a medium as well, is the two mediumship episodes, which we'll talk about in a bit, and the one after, I think, it just seemed to kind of slow down tremendously, the whole series. The first episode I thought was a really good, cracking first episode. Yeah. And I thought the last two was pretty good as well. And we'll talk about them separately. But generally, I was happy with it. It had a nice mixture of visiting the University of Northampton, where the parapsychological units are, and talking to Dr. Rowe, I think it is there. And it was a nice balance. The problem is, and I think let's start talking about this. In episode 2, called Mediums Part 1, and episode 3 is Mediums Part 2. Yeah. And we're introduced. We go to Netherlands. We go to what looks like a psychic weekend, where people are coming to a locally organised weekend, organised by Nicola van der Haas, I think it is.
Yeah.
With her are two British mediums. One of them is Colin Bates. Now, Colin Bates is very, very well known on the circuit as such, because he's a teacher and a medium for the SNU. He teaches at a place called the Arthur Findlay College. And there was another medium, I partially remembered him. And then there was also a female medium who was a trance medium and healer. Now, so I think let's kind of segment this. It showed several times that the two male mediums giving readings to the audience. I must be honest. I mean, obviously we're watching a television program. Obviously it's been edited. Yeah. But I was very disappointed in the evidence that they were actually giving to the audience.
Yeah, it is. It put it over in too broad a way. But from what I can gather recently, the SNU, that's the Spiritualist National Union, have been teaching mediums a different way of connecting with the audience. They are now saying that you cannot go, oh, can I come to the lady in that red dress, please? Because they are, whether your guide has said it, which is the way that I work as a medium, my guide will say, you're with that person there in the blue, and I'll go to them. But they are looking at that as being a psychic link, which when you first start off working on a public platform, you can imagine the audience, the congregation, wherever you're working, they all, I want to hear from Billy, Susan, John, Belinda. They all want to be this, and it's very much that thought there, which is how spirit work is thought to thought, can be at times stronger than that being received by the medium, because of the medium state at that time, particularly in their earlier years or when they first start going out. The communicative process, this is William, bless him, communicating process is somewhat attenuated by the medium, oh, am I going to be okay? Is this okay? They're all looking at me. So it tends to keep the brain more active. So the thoughts from the audience can outweigh in sort of depth, in strength rather, not depth, than what is coming through from the spirit side. So the nervousness, and I should imagine the adrenaline of the medium, basically can cause, that kind of It's in the earlier, when you're first out there normally, because once you're out there, you're working on a regular basis. When I say out there, you're in the public realm. You're in the public, then that eases because you're more relaxed, you're used to it, and you build that more trust with your guides and the overall process. So when you look at it that way, I can understand why the SNU would say it's a psychic link, when really still technically it isn't, but they want to get away from it. But what it leads me to be is it falls very much into the skeptic realm. They're just fishing. Oh, can you take John? Can you take Mary? Can you take a bloke who used to wear a hat? It's so broad, and that's what gives over to cold reading, and it gives mediums a wrong name.
That's what I felt. I'm sorry to put in, but it's interesting you say that. Is whenever anybody is doing a parody of mediums, they always say, "Can you accept John, Jack, Jeff, John?" And I think in one of the episodes somebody said, "Oh, can you take John?" and it was Jack, and I was like, I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that done by really bad mediums where they said, "Oh yes, sometimes people called John would be known as Jack." I'm like, no,
it's John or it's Jack.
Yeah, and I've actually heard that, and it reminded me of that. And then Colin was given a reading. Now the problem is the TV crew probably recorded 2 hours of a demonstration. Yeah. And we are watching 30 seconds. We're watching 2 minutes, and we're jumping to conclusion. So I put my hand up and I admit that.
Totally.
I think the problem is there's two things falling down. Is the dose of mediumship that we saw, the stand-up mediumship by Colin Bates.
Yeah.
What we saw there, is the picture of you at a zoo and with some monkeys. Now, I don't know about you, Ian, but I visited a zoo when I was younger. If your family was lucky enough to own a camera, there's a likelihood of you with a monkey. There's a picture. I have a picture of me holding a monkey in a crochet blanket. My children have pictures of them stood near monkeys. It just seems so broad a thing that, I should imagine 70% of people could actually relate to that. And I had a problem with that. And it might be that the people who were editing the program or the director was actually impressed by that and not realised that actually it's a bit of a broad stroke piece of evidence, a broad stroke thing.
Yeah, sorry, Martin. The other thing to think of as well is that within that filming, it may well be that the people receiving messages didn't want any information to give. And, I don't want to be on telly. I don't want people to know that I've been here, or I don't want, it's personal to me, or the medium could have said, well, no, I'm sorry, this is too personal. So there is a little bit of that. So maybe some of the evidence when it comes up, you're thinking, oh my goodness, you got the name, the address, what they do for work, but the person who was receiving the message might not wanted that to be aired.
No, you're right, and this is what I'm saying. It's hard to pass comment. You can only comment on what you actually saw.
Of course.
I felt, and then a running thread all the way through these two episodes was a young man from India. I believe he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he was very, very interested in developing I think he wanted to develop as a trance medium, ultimately. He was talking about his experiences with his father passing away, and he felt that he could sense him all the time around him.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's a great, if he feels that connection, that's wonderful. He then went to one of the male mediums, and I really, I should have made notes, to be honest, but he went to one of the male mediums, not Colin. It went disastrous, didn't it?
Yeah.
And the reading, now a lot of people, and I've seen comments on the internet saying, well, that was absolutely, it didn't go right at all. It didn't go wrong. It was off on different tangents and that sort of thing. But what struck me is, and this is, I actually thought he did the right thing, the medium, is he was trying to get a connection and he was not getting that connection, and he stopped the reading. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody who's been filmed by TV crew, who's got the pressure of that, who's obviously been told, we want you to give a reading to this guy, but doesn't get the connection and stops it, well, I was quite happy with that, because that's something we teach in our course about connection. What's your feelings about that, about kind of stopping a connection?
I would have done the same. If I'm not getting it, then I'm not going to guess. People have expectations, and that Indian gentleman only wanted to hear from that one person. So it does naturally preclude everybody. So it's about whether the facts come through about his uncle, his sister, his mother, however, will be no, because they only want to hear from Dad. And I do feel here, there is a part to play from the sitter. It's not all about the medium. The sitter needs to be open. Now, when we say open, it's not a believer, they'll take anything, but you need to be open, because like I always say to people, put your smartphone on, you've got a voice recorder, record it, listen afterwards, because there's names coming over and they think, no, I can't take any of that. They go back and they often send me a text or a email saying, oh yeah, I can take all those names. I talk to me dad or me mum or me uncle. So I do feel here the whole process is where the medium is the middle person. So you have the expectations of the sitter, the needs, and you have spirit talking. The way I always say to people is, the people coming through who want to speak to you are the ones who deem they can help yourself in the time we are allowing for this reading, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. So it's always the people, that come through. If they're having financial difficulties, then you could have a family member who was, when he or she passed over, left a legacy of 249,000 quid because they were good savers, So it's likely there. But I do feel, I'm still getting off the beaten track there, folks. I do feel here, whilst the main impetus is on the medium, the sitter does play a part in it. But in stopping the reading when it doesn't work or when it's not right, it is the right thing to do. I always say, sorry, it's not working. Well, when I say always work, if it's not working, I say it doesn't work and there's no charge. You know what I mean? Because how can you charge for something you've not done?
You hit on a good point there, because I do certainly feel that there was probably other people from the spirit world wanting to come through and talk to him, but for the purpose of the TV program, they obviously wanted his father to come through and kind of give that evidence. And ultimately, the evidence that he got or was happy about actually came from a trance mediumship session with Nicola de Haas, I think, van der Haas. Now, another thread of this series was an American family led by an American man who lost his father, and his father looked like a very, very, he looked very happy and very connected. Whenever it showed a picture of him, I thought, this is somebody who's got a really gentle heart. I don't know if
definitely. No, definitely.
So basically, this American guy, I think his name was David, his father passed away, and he ended up going to a medium, and a medium gave him some evidence. And how the evidence happened was that the guy said to his dad before the medium turned up, if I'm going to give you something to say, and I want you to mention my hair. Now the medium came, gave a reading. He was quite impressed with it, but he was a bit disappointed about that the hair wasn't mentioned, so he didn't think it was his father. And as the medium was walking out, the medium turned around and said, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention your dad's talking about your hair. And that was the evidence he needed.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, I think most people would have walked away and said, I got my evidence. My dad is fine. Because that essentially most people want to know, are people okay after they've passed?
Yes.
And that was mentioned several times by different people. I just want to know if they're okay. And anybody who is in spirit, they're perfectly fine. Don't worry. And the problem is with this guy is he then went on, and he admitted it on screen, that it became addictive to him.
Yeah.
So what he started to do was go to mediums all the way around New York multiple times. He gave a false name, again had, like a trick question, a question that he would hold back and see if the medium would answer it from his dad. I thought that's where I struggled with it, because I thought this guy shouldn't have been actually in the documentary.
No, but I think to be perfectly honest, it does highlight stuff, because people always, one of the things that they say about mediums is, oh, they're just money grabbers, they're just playing on the needy. When people have a choice, they don't have to go to a medium. You know what I mean? It's not a case of without there dragging them in off the street. But I do feel it does highlight the sort of need, you know, where it's I want to learn more, I want to know more, I want to hear this, you know.
But he just kind of wanted that evidence over and over again. I mean, that was the issue for me, was, and we've had people before who we've talked to during ghost hunts or whatever, where they've said, "Oh, I've been to loads of spiritualist churches, and I keep trying to get a reading from my mother or my father or whatever." And I don't get it. And he was exactly the same, in that he had one good piece of evidence come through, and he kept wanting to repeat it over and over again. And I think there's some sort of grief process happening here,
yes,
where
definitely.
he wants to keep connecting to that. And then he did exactly like what we experienced on the ghost hunts. Now, on the ghost hunts, we would have a guy come along by himself, or with a friend or a partner. They would have an amazing experience, or some evidence, or something like that. And then we would see them come with their family, and their family would definitely not be interested.
Yeah.
But they would be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." You know, they'd already told them, "Oh, this happened, this happened, this happened," not realizing actually on ghost hunts, you know, if you do get activity, you're lucky, because, you know, you can't just switch on the paranormal.
No, definitely not.
But yes, you can get readings. So this guy then brought his family to Nicola, and Nicola came to America to do a reading. She went through the family giving readings, and one of the family members was a restaurant owner, or co-restaurant owner. And she, while in trance, she brought through this little boy called Timmy. I mean, I'm a medium, and I've seen trance mediumship, and I've seen it all around the country. I've been to grassroots. And it sounded so stereotyped.
It does, yeah. My sentiments, Martin.
That Timmy. All right, Cocker, you all right? It's me, little Timmy. I thought, oh my God. And I thought, number one, it's obviously that Leslie likes Nicola as a medium and believes in Nicola as a medium. But the 3 spirit guides that she claims to have were very, very stereotypical.
Yes.
She then gave this reading to this restaurant owner, and on first value, I thought, wow, she's done all right. Hook 'em up was apparently this term that a father was something that his father said in a restaurant, which is true. His father was still alive. That he had an ugly green car, I think it was, that he was in the fish business or restaurant business, which was correct. And it was like bang, 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 bang. Or it was edited to look like it was bang, 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 bang. And then afterwards, the family was talking about it, and they were like, yeah, it's amazing and that sort of thing. And then they went onto Facebook, and they realized that everything she'd said, the green car was on his profile picture, the hook 'em up was on the restaurant menu, the restaurant was connected to his Facebook page, and all that sort of thing. So everything could have been...
It could have been, yeah.
Could have been researched. And again, we have 2 problems here. So this is kind of a caveat here. But one thing we have to say is that, firstly, this is an edited program. There could have been more evidence delivered by Nicola during that trance session, and that was edited out because it didn't fit the discoveries that the family made on Facebook or the internet. And secondly, for me, it wasn't apparent. But how did Nicola know about the family unless somebody had pre-told her exactly who the family was?
Yeah.
So to me, the fact that they highlighted it suggested to me that she'd already had pre-communication with the family.
Yeah, and that's the thing, when you have sitters, private, sitters being a person who's wanting a reading to hear from loved ones. You can have a lot of, you've got to be careful of having a lot of feedback from that sitter. Oh, no, I can't take that. I can't take this. Or, well, sorry, that's wrong. When they're saying, oh, yes, you're right. You got your mum. She was called Mavis and she did this and she always had that. So they're giving you information you cannot give back then, but It's a difficult one, because when you have sitters who just sit there totally silent, which is fine, and then you have ones who are very, very garrulous, so is it that sort of thing? Have the family given away a lot of information? It's what the skeptical person would look for. Oh yeah, they've done this.
I think the fact that she said hook 'em in,
Yeah.
green car, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The program was edited in a way which suggested that she had pre-researched.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
the fact that they'd built the previous episode all around Nicola and the Psychic Weekend, and also shown and played aspects of her trance mediumship sessions. They'd built a whole program of it, and then in the second episode, they completely destroyed her by suggesting that she'd pre-researched with his family.
Yeah.
But if she was given the chance of pre-research for a television program, she therefore must have been given the information about the family themselves.
Yes.
She wasn't sneaking off to the toilet mid trance session and going on the internet as quickly as she can. She didn't say, "What's your name?" "Oh, my name's Jack Bennett. I live in Minnesota." Somebody, whether it was Leslie, the author, or whether it was the producer or director or whoever, must have. If we're saying Nicola's fraudulent, then somebody gave her the information about that family, and that person is as much to fault as much as a medium.
Definitely.
Because it's all right saying, "Oh yeah, medium's fake. Oh yeah, mediums go on Facebook and check people out, and it's cold reading and hot reading." But the fact of the matter is, and this is something that needs to be flagged up, is the only way Nicola knows about this is because somebody fed it her.
Yeah.
Who did it? They're at fault.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. Like, when we've been to the many ghost hunting venues, I purposely, I used to ask you, what's the postcode, please? So then I'm not going on the internet and getting any sort of pre-knowledge about it, and then I bring it out, like is it a dun cow at Dudley or that sort of thing, or somebody who massacred everybody and raped everything.
Yeah. I mean, also we're talking about the sort of psychosphere, I suppose, the psychic atmosphere. But the thing is what we did with mediums on the ghost hunts is we told them where they were going, or gave them scant instructions, and during the training process, they were always told, "Don't go on the internet, look at the information, don't pre-research, don't do that, because if we find out that you have pre-research, we're not." We simply will not use you on the ghost hunts. And we had one female medium, very, very good. But the following week, she would kind of research all the evidence that she picked up from the previous ghost hunt. So if she went to Ragged School, she'd say, "Oh, I picked up on a boy called Joe, and I found that there was a boy called Joe there. Oh, isn't this fantastic?" The problem is she might end up going to the Ragged School 10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
If she's already doing the research after her first ghost hunt, that's it. She's utterly ruined it for the rest.
Well, that's it.
So we couldn't use her again because she'd completely pre-researched Ragged School and a few other, Highland House in Chelmsford, I think it was. And then, we started getting ideas that a certain medium, we had a medium based in London who became very high profile through his own self-promotion. And we thought he was faking. It didn't make sense. So we started a new venue, made up a name, Sir Anthony Orchards, and I claimed that Sir Anthony Orchards was haunting this place, and that in the Civil War he held the castle siege and broke in and murdered everything and everybody in there. It was utterly nonsense. I made it completely up, and Sir Anthony Orchards was actually an anagram of the medium's name. So the medium turned up, and halfway around he said, "Right, straight away I've got Sir Anthony here. Sir Anthony Orchards is here. He's doing this, that, and the other." And we knew straight away from that point that he'd pre-researched. He'd looked at the event information. The only place to see where Sir Anthony Orchards was on my website, and another ghost hunting company who copied my details and actually gave it validation to this medium. But Sir Anthony Orchards never existed. I completely made it up based on an anagram. I was able to get Sir Anthony Orchards, and it sounds fairly legit. Back to this point, I mean, Nicola was central to both episodes of this. She seemingly organised a very well thought out psychic weekend. It looked great. The people coming along were looking for answers, looking to explore their own mediumship. I just felt that the program and probably the weekend seemed to be central about her. And she knew it. Now, to me, I mean, it felt like the ego kicked in. I don't know.
Definitely.
When I've seen trance mediumship, Ian, and it's probably the same experience as you. I've been in a small room. There's only been 10 or 12 of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been in pitch black. Sometimes it's been in low light with maybe a red light bulb or something like that. And afterwards, the medium might feel a bit phased or whatever, but usually has a drink and that sort of thing and has a chat. But Nicola had to come out of the room, didn't acknowledge anyone, and had to sit in a room by herself for half an hour. I mean, did that seem real to you?
No, definitely not. You know, I was questioning. I was thinking myself, well, am I being detrimental? Am I being a medium beta? You know what I mean? Because
that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, because I was looking at it, and then when she had her physical stuff, when she was mentioning, oh yes, it's the cabinet, she did go into it a little bit of why later. But why all the pitch black and have a red light on? You know, if she was doing direct voice, it wasn't clear what physical mediumship she was pretending. Well, say pretending. There
was some dodgy photographs. I don't know if you remember, but there was 3 photographs that were shown, and all 3 photographs. And I paused them and I looked at them, and all 3 of them were long exposure and were not on a tripod for sure, because there was movement of light on it. So there weren't manifestations or anything like that.
Sorry, no. I just don't feel. It left me with a lot of questions. You know, rather than wow. When they said, "Oh, we can't have the cameras there," then I think the TV should have said because of. I know she did say, well, you know, light affects ectoplasm and whatever, but her physical demo, what you saw of it, was just the same as the trance, and that isn't physical mediumship. Trance is a controlled mediumship, whereas physical mediumship is trance. You need a very deep level of trance in order to do the physical stuff. But when you're looking at it all, it just seemed to me, particularly Timmy, I thought, has she been following Leslie Flint? Is she a follower of him, who used to have the same little boy, a barrow boy? And I wonder whether she's got the idea from that physical mediumship. It just didn't ring true, you know. And one of the audience members said, yes, my father came through and he touched me on the head. I knew it was him. And I'm thinking, well, is that of because that's what you want, because that's what you believe there? Because, you know, being on the paranormal things, when you're all in the dark, muscle spasms, you know, you feel you're being touched. You got the drafts from a big open place. You know, normally some of the parts of the place you're in, you've got no roof. So I think it didn't satisfy me anyway for evidence of physicality of mediumship at all.
No, I think what struck me was, and again, it might be the editing of the documentary, but she was saying that I'm sitting in this cabinet and they're tying my hands, they're putting Velcro on. I'm thinking, and this was with her circle. It was just her circle. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. So you can't be trusted with your own circle. Why aren't you just sat there in a chair? Why, you know, it was like she was doing things because she'd read about it.
Exactly.
And it seemed a good thing to do. And the trance mediumship I've seen has never been in a cabinet.
It doesn't need to be.
No, it was never in a cabinet or anything like that. I've seen physical mediumship, and as you say, it's a very long and boring. It depends how you look at it, but it is a very long process, isn't it? It's not. It's kind of beyond trance mediumship.
It is, but like, Yeah, sorry, Martin. When you're looking at it being long, it could take years to get any sort of definite phenomena happening. And people want things happening tomorrow. So, when you look at it there, I've been to see a physical mediumship in Kent. I was very open-minded, and I had the nonce about me just to sort of note things and make notes and do this. At one point I was asked to walk towards the cabinet and shake the spirit's hand. I couldn't see anything, so I thought there, bearing in mind, yes, it was dark, but there were pieces of luminescent, like the cones, a cone shape for direct voice and stuff, and they had a luminescent strip, so there was a very, very vague amount of light, so I could see my way forward. I put my hand out, I couldn't see a hand, but I shook one, and I thought, hey, I can't see a damn thing, and then we are shaking this man's hand, which I'm only a short bloke, so my hand is 7 inches. So, it's like a little kid. I often say on Ghostlands, is this like, if I'm holding hands with the person next to me, said, is this like taking your kid to school? And I just noted, was this person wearing a ring? Was this? Was there warts? Was there cuts? Whatever. When I purposely went over to shake the medium's hand, after everything had done, we went downstairs, had a cup of coffee, said thank you. And I purposely made a point of shaking his hand to see if it was the same one.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. So
I think we recorded an episode actually when you went to there. So there is an episode, a bonus episode called Ian Visits the Psychic Medium.
That's it, yeah.
If you're interested in Ian's experience after 20 years of being an observer in ghost hunting and being aware of everything, of what his experience was, and that might give a lot of you out there. I'll tell you what I might do is republish it for everybody, so you can see what kind of is happening grassroots level in the UK and what Ian's experiences are, especially with his experience as well. I think that's worth bearing in mind.
I think so, yeah.
But I was thoroughly disappointed with Nicola.
Yes.
It certainly felt, and again, it could be the editing, but I want to say it did feel like it was a bit of ego in there.
Yeah.
It also felt like the journey for the Asian gentleman. She finally came up with the evidence. Was she plied with the evidence that he was looking? He was looking for his dad, because she didn't really say anything apart from used an Indian term, I believe, father, I think, Barter, I think it was. But she happened to get it, and it didn't feel right at all. None of it. It didn't make sense that when she's doing a circle, admittedly, she did say it takes the whole circle for spirit to come through, not just her. So she was deflecting the ego as such there. But then again, she was sitting in a cabinet, she was being tied up and that sort of thing. I thought, what's the point in that? Is it that why are you doing it? Because the reason why it was being done originally was people like Oliver Lodge and William Crooks and everyone wanted to prove that there was no fraudulence, so hence why they did stuff like that. It was a bit bizarre. And then there was another scene. I mean there's scene after scene what we can go through, but there was another scene, and it was a blonde woman who was a trance healer.
Yeah.
And she was on the weekend. And a gentleman who looked like he had a nervous tick in his left arm, had constant problems with it, apparently been to numerous doctors, had a brain scan, that sort of thing. They couldn't work out what it was. And he met with this lady. She went into trance, and she was a doctor, I think, some doctor that she's worked with. And she healed the gentleman. And afterwards, his arm stopped twitching. And in fact, during the session, the arm stopped twitching.
Yeah.
And he walked away, and that was it. And again, there's been a lot of comments about that. That was a load of nonsense and that sort of thing. Go on, and I'll put you on the spot then. What's your thoughts about that? About her and the mediumship that you saw?
Well, to be perfectly honest, it's something that I've seen already and had first-hand experience of it. One of my very, very good friends, I won't mention her name because I don't think I think she'd hit me with a rolling pin if I did. she's a very, very deep trance medium, and she does trance healing. And she also comes through with a gentleman who has a really deep voice. You know, you're looking at he says a few words and that's it. I was training very hard down the gym, pushing myself, and I pulled a muscle on the top of my shoulder, part of my, do you call it, trapezius muscle, and it was causing me hurt, and I didn't say anything. So her guide, whilst we're doing the trance circle, said, "Oh, you've got a problem with your shoulder, perhaps blah blah blah. I can give you the healing afterwards." So I said, "Well, yes, thank you," and I sat on a chair, and she sat on a stool behind me, and she put a hand on my back, so it was nowhere near my shoulder. I had a shirt on, and the only way to put it over, it felt like somebody's got one of those, an ice lolly straight out of the freezer where it's really cold. It burns, it's not cold. She put a hand on my back, and it felt like that. You know, of course there was no hurt, but within 3 days, that shoulder problem was sorted. It took very, very little time. And those of you who train a lot, particularly when you have a stress muscle or a sort of a very, very much a strained muscle, you know, it's not just muscle tightening. Oh yes, I'll be fine if I give it a day's rest. You know, so it went without any niggles. I've never had a niggle with it since. I can understand that mediums, the way that things work. So I would say that satisfied me on what I currently know.
Yeah, I think the problem is when I watched it again, we are watching edited. I mean, that session might have been 30 minutes, it might have been 40 minutes, who knows? But they edited it in a particular way that it was heavily influenced on the communication from the doctor, which kept repeating yes my boy, that sort of thing, and because it had been edited in that way, it seemed that she was faking that.
I can see how that would come over.
Yeah, but I felt, and the problem is, and this is what I felt about her, not Nicola, but what I felt about her was there was a complete lack of explanation
definitely,
of what would be happening, how it would be happening. And a television program isn't the place to do it. But I do believe that she was in some form of trance. And I do believe that she was being influenced by spirit. And I also do believe that she was providing healing. And a lot of people might be quite amazed by that because, you know, I'm a skeptical believer. I'm a medium. But, you know, it does look unusual. You know, we are dealing with the unusual. She definitely wasn't faking. Mm-hmm. She was healing, and I think also as well is because of the lack of explanation, we were done and dusted within about an 8-minute period where it was, oh, this is Janine or whatever her name was, little bit of a talk. She was talking about about what she did. She was very honest about how she was. She talked to the couple, talked to the man, and the next shot, she was in trance. There was no build up to it. There was nothing. She just kind of suddenly she was this old man. Suddenly she's talking in a weird voice that seemed unusual. Mm-hmm. It was edited in a way that it seemed that particular statements were being repeated. And suddenly it looks very fraudulent. And I think anything that you do in life can be edited in a particular way that makes it look fraudulent. So I do think some of the comments that are out there towards this woman are unfounded. They're not looking at the bigger picture. You know, it's like the old sort of Most Haunted thing. You know, the first couple of series of Most Haunted and stuff. And I would defend it because I was saying, you know, they're filming for 9 to 12 hours in a haunted location, and the final 15 minutes of the program is essentially that 9 hours, you know, of ghost hunting. So it does seem exciting. It does seem like there's a load of stuff happening and all that sort of stuff. And that's because it's all edited down. It's all trimmed off. All, you know, the hour where you sat in a particular haunted room and nothing happens. There's no point in showing that. Right, we'll show the bit where something may have happened. You know?
Yes.
And that's the problem with this documentary, really. The Mediumship documentary is it's fairly easy with the reincarnation. The reincarnation went into great lengths at some story. The first story, I think, had about 25 minutes, you know, and it was really in depth, how she had a near-death experience, how she, you know, she was trapped. There was reconstructions. That there was an experience with a son as well. Totally in depth.
Yeah.
But yet, when it did need to be in depth, and it needed to be in depth when the mediums were on for greater explanation, it failed it. And instead, what it did do is, instead of offer explanation, it intersected with comment from the university and the archive saying these were found as fraudulent, these were fraudulent, these were fraudulent.
Yeah.
And the saving grace of all this was actually when they went to a psychical study group in the Netherlands, and they showed the wax hands.
Yes, definitely.
And I saw that and I thought, yes, you know, this is the evidence, because, you know, I mean, as he went into detail, you know, some of these hands were small.
Yes, were children's. Yeah.
There were children's hands. There were small hands in there. How could they have got the hands in there and got the wax off in front of, what was it, six international...
Yeah, but that's it. They also put a particular colour in there, didn't they? That has, you know, for want of better...
That was it, the dye, yeah.
Yeah, the dye. So, it was typical, it was, you know, unique. So it couldn't be just replicated there on the spot. It had to have certain qualities.
It had to be the wax that was actually in the tank.
Yeah.
And basically what happened was, for people who haven't watched it, is a long time ago there used to be manifestations in which there used to be a tank with, I think it was warmish water, and wax was placed on top of the water. So liquid wax was on top. And spirit would be asked to manifest by placing their hand or something into the wax. And what would happen is as the hand would go in and go into the cold water beneath, or colder water beneath, that the wax would solidify very quickly, and you would be left with a cast of the hand, or in some circumstances here, a foot. You could say, well, maybe it was the greatest magic trick and that sort of thing, but you know, there's countless records of observations of these things, especially was it Eusebio Palladio?
Yes, yeah, Palladio, the Italian medium was.
That's it, yeah. And to me, it was great that they did balance it up in that respect. So it wasn't all one-sided. I do feel that Mediumship came off worse out of the whole series.
It always does, though, Martin. You know, it's always looked at that because, I just think it's...
Easy target, do you think? Easy target?
Yeah, it is, because there's so many haters out there, and they don't put it in a balance, like, you know, where Scott Rogo puts his books and everything in a balanced way. And I think the TV, the media don't. You know, they just we'll just do this.
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it there because it's been an hour, and this makes it an absolute, huge podcast. But if you join us in our next episode, we'll be talking about the other phenomenon. We'll be talking about the near-death experiences, reincarnation, and other things discussed in Surviving Death.